DirecTV seems to have dug their heels in, which we're disappointed by. Puts they're not listening to their customers. I know we hear from a lot of our fans and their customers, so they appear not to be listening, which is frustrating because they've been known for really catering to sports fans. I think that's been their signature, but I think we and others are starting to question whether that's what they're about or not.
You guys are, if I heard correctly, downloading, or you got the new app now, the fans for the iPhone and the...
Yes, in fact, I don't usually do show and tell when I show up to football games, but we've got actually just today. We announced the new iPhone app, which we're very excited about, and just in time for this weekend and next weekend. So I think it's, from my perspective, I'm very proud of the team. I think for a startup network that's about 8 weeks old, to be able to, show live TV on a screen like this, I think is pretty cool. So, that was one of the things I discussed with our presidents early on when we decided to do the network, and we wanted to be very technologically advanced, being on the West Coast and tied into a lot of technology leaders in Silicon Valley and all that. We wanted to be very state of the art. We think that's what our schools stand for in terms of innovation, and so we very much designed it with that in mind. So, right now we have the networks available to any subscriber on iPad and iPhone, and it will be available on Android devices and other devices in the next several weeks. Any other questions?
Do you get bored watching this Oregon football week after week?
Well, I don't get to see them every week, but no, they're anything but boring to watch. Very exciting. So, that's one of the great things about our conference. As I travel around the country, when people look at the Pac-12, they see a lot of different types of offenses and schemes and some of the more innovative styles of play out there. So I think that's one of the fun things actually about our conference, to see the different contrasts and styles.
There's always been this perceived East Coast bias in the coverage. Do you think you're making any progress in terms of getting the Pac-12 talked about as much as some of the other conferences?
I think so. At the end of the day, it depends on the quality of play, but I was just telling someone I was watching the first half with 3 short years ago when I started in this role, talking to a lot of national media and East Coast media. I'm from the East Coast myself. Before coming out here, they said your biggest challenge is going to be the conferences perceived in football as USC and 9 others. It wasn't seen as very deep. So there's a lot of things we've done to try to address that feeling that the conference was not respected and was not getting the exposure, including bringing the football coaches back east, including in all our new TV deals, making sure there's national exposure, starting the TV network, etc. But it is very gratifying to see the narrative having changed so much, and having 4 top 20 teams at this stage of the season. And a lot's got to do with the emergence, frankly, of Oregon and Stanford. The years that USC was on probation, to have Oregon and Stanford step up, have 2 BCS bowl teams each of the last 2 years, 3 top 10 teams the end of the last season, 3 top 10 teams now. I think when people think about conferences that have depth, we're in that conversation. I don't think we really were a few years ago.
Oregon State surprising?
Yeah, they're another very pleasant surprise, and with a very similar team to what they had last year. They're a great story this year. So, it's going to be an exciting second half of the season. They got some big tests, but they're terrific.
One more thing. Are you surprised Oregon's third in the BCS? Do you think that's a problem there?
I think this stage of the season, no one worries too much about that. There's still a lot of football, and they're very well positioned. I feel like they've got control of their own destiny.
You've got the app, the network. What would it mean to beat an SEC team for this conference in a championship game?
I think it would be terrific for our conference, and I think around the country, the SEC deserves the plaudits they're getting. 6 in a row is pretty amazing, and I think until someone beats them in the national championship, they can keep talking about their dominance. So I think it would be a game changer, for Oregon to come along if they do. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Still, halfway through the season. But, I think it would be a game changer, and that would, the question before about, national image and attention, I think that, it's going to take something like that till, especially the eastern half of the United States, sees the conference a little differently.
Cal remodeled and vacated for an entire season. Washington's doing it this year. ASU's looking at maybe doing something like that. Is that kind of the new wave, is to leave for you, or do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it depends on the scale of the project. We've got these have happened in bits and pieces, so people haven't really looked at it in totality. But we've actually got, I think last week I said it was $1 billion. I actually took pencil to paper this week. It's actually $1.5 billion worth of projects that have just been completed, are in progress, or are on the drawing board, and some really big ones. Cal, Husky Stadium, plans for down here, Rose Bowl renovation going on. Everywhere I go, almost Utah, Oregon State, big to small. But there's a lot of major projects. I think there was a sense in our conference that we had fallen behind in terms of facility development in other areas. And, thanks to, our athletics directors pushing the envelope, donors stepping up, and then our TV contracts coming along, and that's the benefit of 12-year TV contracts. It gives you a long runway, a lot of financial stability, a lot of planning that you can do, a lot of bonding you can do. I think that's why you see such a flurry of activity, because we've got financial stability and our conference had fallen behind.
Larry, what potentially would it do for the conference if Oregon were to be the team that ends the SEC run? What could it do for you as a brand, just not to be not seen as, the West Coast guys?
Yeah, I'd still, again, being a New Yorker myself and being from the East Coast and traveling around the country a lot, there is a sense of SEC dominance. I think it's well deserved, and I don't think that will really change as long as they got their streak going. But all streaks come to an end, and I like the way our conference is positioned. At this stage of the season, 3 top 10 teams and stacked up. Well, I think the way I want our conference to be seen is to have elite teams at the top, capable of making a national championship, winning a national championship from time to time, but also having depth. I think that's what you look for. And we're a conference, we're going through transition. We've had a lot of coaching changes. There's a lot of, investment in facilities and other things going on. So frankly, at this stage, I'm pretty happy with where we are. I think the future is very bright with the new coaches that have come in and the resources our conference has and the natural assets. We think where our conference has been based on the recruiting base that we have out here, the coaches that we've had, knowing we were at a very different level from a resource standpoint. You think about now that the resources are on par, our TV contract is, on par, if not better, with anything else out there in terms of exposure, our own network, facilities get up to snuff. I think it's going to be amazing to watch where this conference goes in football and in basketball, for that matter, over the next few years.